China is removing all tariffs from all African countries. This is huge, and definitely it is going to ruffle some feathers, especially Western nations, because it is a big move that will encourage African countries to trade with China, even though China has been the #1 trading partner for African countries for over 15 years.
China has shown good faith. China has shown that Africa is its friend, and it's obvious that all African countries are here to deepen the relationship.
For those who may not know, China has been Africa's most important trading partner for the past 15 years. It is significantly more crucial for Africa to trade with China than with the United States. This new development only strengthens and expands the existing relationship, making it more significant for both China and Africa. Meanwhile, the United States becomes increasingly less relevant. No one should be surprised that just days before this announcement, the American military general in charge of the Africa Command acknowledged the command's failure. This acknowledgement is not necessarily due to mistakes by the military, but is a result of the very economic developments we've seen between Africa and China. These developments erode the foundation upon which military influence might otherwise rest. The changes happening in global economic alignments are resolving many issues that previously seemed to require military or political solutions. While political and military factors still hold weight, in this case, the economic development underway seems far more potent. Recent meetings in London between the United States and China illustrate this shift. Despite much diplomatic posturing, the United States ultimately had to concede to secure agreements, gaining little that alters the current global order, in which its influence continues to wane. The Vietnam War offers a historic lesson. The war was incredibly expensive, and opposition at home ultimately brought it to an end. The United States lost that war. The Communist Party of Vietnam, once the enemy, still governs the country today. This defeat demonstrated the risks of losing domestic support, regardless of military success abroad. This lesson profoundly affects current U.S. military policy, often unspoken but deeply ingrained. President Trump's global tariff policies further complicate matters. By imposing tariffs on nearly everyone, he inadvertently gives foreign governments a convenient scapegoat. Whether or not their politicians are honest, they can credibly blame their economic troubles on U.S. tariffs. The United States has positioned itself as the global antagonist, responsible for hurting exports, imports, balance of payments, and economic stability. Recently, a new leader took over the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. Much like his predecessor, he expressed support for Trump's tax cuts, but criticized the tariffs. The American business community tolerates government policies as long as they remain profitable. When those policies start to threaten profits, they quickly become problematic. President Trump should be cautious. Pursuing aggressive State Department fantasies may seem appealing until the economic consequences materialize. Once these policies start to disrupt domestic business, commerce, and tourism, even those previously indifferent will begin to object. The backlash will not stem from ideological disagreements, but from tangible disruptions to everyday life and business. There is no evidence that Russia faces circumstances that might force it to capitulate. The narrative suggesting Russia will soon throw in the towel lacks any credible support. In fact, the opposite appears true. Sanctions, military actions, and escalating pressures have not driven Russia to negotiations. Instead, they may have solidified internal support for Putin, as evidenced by polling data from both sympathetic and critical sources. Each new sanction package, including the 18th from Europe, has failed to produce the desired outcome. Continuing the same strategy while expecting a different result borders on irrationality. Military experts warn that if current trends persist, Russia may achieve its objectives in Ukraine within 6 months. Sometimes, attacking an adversary only strengthens their unity and resolve. This seems to be the case with Russia. Popular support for Putin remains strong, even among those conducting independent assessments. The American right wing is correct in observing that Russia continues its campaign undeterred by Western measures. In Europe, post-World War II politics have long favored leaders who align with American interests. Ambitious politicians quickly learned that supporting the United States was essential for career advancement. Those who failed to embrace this reality often found themselves marginalized, sometimes with direct American intervention. The case of the American diplomat involved in installing Zelensky in Ukraine exemplifies this dynamic. Her dismissal of European objections was not unique. It merely made explicit what many already knew. Today's European leaders, including figures like Starmer, Macron, and Merz, have built their careers around close ties to the United States. An unconventional leader like Trump questioning these long-standing arrangements poses a significant disruption. However, replacing the current generation of European leaders will take time. These leaders remain firmly committed to the transatlantic status quo that has shaped their careers and political identities. The situation resembles a classic cartoon. A duck runs off a cliff, continues moving forward in the air, and only falls once it realizes there is no ground beneath its feet. Europe may soon experience a similar delayed realization as shifts in global power dynamics slowly erode long-standing dependencies on the United States. The steady decline of pro-American European politics may unfold over the coming months and years. But the situation is even broader than this. The global economic landscape is witnessing a remarkable realignment, not just in Africa, Europe, or Asia, but across all continents. New alliances are forming based on mutual economic benefit rather than old military alliances. Countries previously dependent on Western economies are diversifying their trade partners, finding new markets, and forming cooperative blocs that challenge the old dominance of Western powers. China's Belt and Road Initiative exemplifies this trend. Infrastructure investments spanning from Asia to Africa and even parts of Europe are binding nations into a new economic order. These agreements are not merely about infrastructure, but about long-term economic partnerships that create shared interests and deepen interdependence outside of traditional Western control. African nations, in particular, see this as a new era of partnership free from the historical baggage of colonialism and exploitation. As the United States continues to rely heavily on sanctions, tariffs, and military presence to maintain its influence, it risks isolating itself from the very global economy it once dominated. Nations observing the fallout of sanctions against countries like Russia understand the vulnerability of being too closely tied to American financial systems and are actively seeking alternatives. De-dollarization efforts, regional currency agreements, and alternative payment systems are being developed to reduce dependence on the US dollar. The emerging multipolar world is not just an economic adjustment, but a shift in global power structures. It represents a world where influence is distributed more broadly, where no single country can dictate terms to others unilaterally. This new reality requires flexibility, adaptation, and cooperation, traits that are increasingly at odds with the current US approach. While the United States remains a powerful player, its ability to unilaterally shape global events is diminishing. The willingness of nations to challenge US policies openly is a testament to the changing balance of power. Countries are emboldened by new alliances, confident in their growing economic strength, and aware of the mutual dependencies that make economic warfare less effective than before. In this evolving landscape, the role of diplomacy, mutual respect, and economic cooperation becomes paramount. The zero-tariff agreement between China and Africa is a symbol of this new approach, one that contrasts sharply with the punitive measures favored by the United States. It suggests a future where economic partnerships are built on win-win propositions rather than threats and coercion. Ultimately, the world is witnessing a transformation where economic gravity is shifting eastward and new centers of power are emerging. The old unipolar moment has passed, and a more complex, interconnected global order is taking shape. Navigating this new reality will require visionary leadership, strategic foresight, and a willingness to engage in genuine partnerships that respect the interests and sovereignty of all nations involved.